Welcome to Midnight Confessions. You found us. Real people. Real stories. The kind that make you check your locks twice. These aren't fake ghost stories. They're confessions from people who saw something they shouldn't have. Heard footsteps in empty houses. Woke up with bruises they can't explain. Still here? Each story gets darker. The woman who found handprints on her ceiling. The guy whose reflection moved first. The kid who drew the man in his closet before anyone mentioned the murder. Which one will mess you up the most? Subscribe before something finds you first. New confessions every week. Don't watch alone. Let's start the story. If she wasn't even there. I kept staring when suddenly a figure of a man in rough cut-up old-fashioned clothing with hair like the 1800s. He was green and see-through for some reason. And his hair was messy and chopped up. And his skin looked like he was decomposing. And even his leg only have mostly bone flesh and a bit of skin. But the scary part wasn't the man. It was the fact he was reaching for the knife on the counter that was directly next to a candle. I was absolutely scared shitless and shot up, scared out of my mind, seemingly out of sleep paralysis. Trance and sister, who is actually still sitting in front of me, asked me what was wrong. I don't remember answering her, but I waited till the morning, or I think a few days later, to tell my mom what I saw. The crazier part was my sister, not the one in front of me, the one from previous story, saw the exact same thing as me and described it word for word. Then one night almost months after the incident, I had a nightmare of the same scene when I was in sleep paralysis. It happened again, but this time the man spoke. This time he had the knife in his hand and threatened to kill my family. I woke up in tears and silently cried myself back to sleep and told my mom about the dream in the morning. The third story takes place in the same house as the second one. This one is much shorter than the other two. I was a bit older at the time, probably 10 to 11 years old. I don't remember the exact date or year. I just remember the details. It was the afternoon and I was in the kitchen washing my dishes and I think making noodles when I looked out the window. The kitchen window looks out the bit of a front lawn, the CES pit, our garage and the road. I was looking at the garage and the road when this white flowing figure appeared and was walking in the road from the garbage. It wasn't a garbage bag or a plastic bag because it was see-through and walked too much like a human. I stared at it in confusion, in shock as it just walked down the road before disappearing. To this day, I still don't know what that was. I saw, and quite frankly, I don't really want to find out. I have many more supernatural stories of shadow figures and voices, but the gift or curse I had of seeing them seemed to just disappear as I got older. Maybe because I became a bit skeptic as I got older, but I still got feelings of being watched when I'm home alone. And so I still hear the voices, but rarely. It kind of makes me sad, though, knowing I can't get that thrill of seeing the shadow people anymore. I encountered a monster in my backyard when I was 11. Hello, Midnight Confessions. I've been watching your videos every night for months as I go to sleep as background noise. I've heard so many spooky true stories and decided it was finally time to send an experience of my own. The main reason I've decided to write this now is just recently I spoke to my friend who had witnessed it as well and they confirmed that I'm not crazy. Not that I thought I was, but it was nice being reassured. Also, I know I said my backyard, but this incident occurred at my grandma's, though I practically lived there at the time. A fire had happened in the woods of my grandma's neighbor's backyard. Apparently, emergency vehicles had carved a path through the dense woodland behind her property, creating an unexpected route through the forest. Since I wasn't present during this incident, I can only piece together what actually occurred. Several weeks afterward, my cousin, let's refer to her as Ellis, and I were hiking along an established pathway when we stumbled upon this newly formed route created by the emergency responders. Naturally, discovering a fresh trail opened up exciting exploration opportunities without dealing with painful branches and debris, plus reduced chances of twisting our ankles on uneven terrain. The newly created path formed a distinctive horseshoe pattern, providing dual entry and exit points for adventurers like us. Ellis and I ventured along this route, discovering abandoned clothing items, scattered litter, and surprisingly, a complete floor covering. Deeper into our exploration, we encountered a massive drooping willow standing isolated from the surrounding vegetation. Remember this detail, it becomes crucial to our story. For those unfamiliar with drooping willows, these trees lean at dramatic horizontal angles, appearing ready to topple over completely. Local folklore claims these trees have historically fallen onto women's spouses, earning their ominous reputation and distinctive name. Over several days, we continued our woodland adventures together until we decided to add excitement by entering through different access points, giving each of us a solo walking experience for half the journey. This decision definitely delivered the anticipated thrill. I believe I entered first since Ellis needed a restroom break and wanted to hydrate before beginning her portion. The solitary walk provided beautiful scenery and peaceful moments. I genuinely appreciated the alone time because it boosted my confidence and provided the tranquil solitude I often crave. Personal space appeals to me, but that's precisely when I detected branches breaking somewhere to my distant right. Initially, I dismissed this sound as typical woodland creatures, perhaps a squirrel or neighborhood feline, since many roamed the area. This explanation quickly proved inadequate when the branch-breaking sounds became rapid and increasingly loud, approaching at an alarming speed. While somewhat unnerved, I'm not someone who jumps to conclusions hastily. People know me for maintaining composure and remaining unshakable under pressure. Years of consuming horror content during childhood had somewhat numbed my fear responses. When the sound ceased, I criticized myself for being overly cautious and wasting mental energy on nothing significant. I resumed my trek, but minutes later caught movement in my peripheral vision. This shadowy form appeared massive and imposing. I couldn't determine if this presence was more creature-like or human-resembling, though size was the concerning factor regardless. It lurked behind tree cover and vanished when I focused my attention directly on it. Even then, I avoided overanalyzing the situation. My imagination occasionally creates false perceptions, so I attributed the sighting to mental tricks. However, mounting anxiety caused me to quicken my walking speed, hoping to encounter Ellis soon and complete our woodland journey together as originally planned. Unfortunately, she remained absent from view. I was finally nearing the drooping willow when those familiar sounds returned, branch snapping, but exponentially louder this time. Within roughly 3 seconds, I realized this presence was approximately 20 feet away, possibly closer, and rapidly approaching my location. I sprinted toward the drooping willow since it offered the only trunk substantial enough to potentially conceal me, despite being an inadequate hiding location overall. While racing toward this tree, I finally glimpsed the source of my terror. Let's start the second story. The creature's flesh appeared leathery and raw, just exposed skin stretched across bones. Mottled and grimy, it looked absolutely horrifying. Its shoulder bones jutted unnaturally above where its neck should be. A severe curved spine created a grotesque hunched appearance. Those elongated limbs could easily reach the forest floor, shaped somewhat like wings, reminiscent of flying mammals or ancient reptiles. This beast rivaled a grizzly bear in size, with powerful haunches built for running. It moved primarily using those massive forearms, similar to how primates locomote. But imagine that primates supercharged with pure adrenaline, caffeine and stimulants, incredibly swift and agile. I crouched behind thick tree bark, controlling my breathing completely. Peering around the trunk, I watched it race by before vanishing into the thick forest. Running isn't my strength. My knees tend to give out unexpectedly. This weakness has occurred multiple times, causing serious injuries twice. Respiratory issues and low iron levels don't help either. When I say I fled desperately, that barely captures the terror I felt. I ignored every possible hazard underfoot. Honestly, I probably held my breath the entire escape. None of that mattered in that moment. Eventually, I spotted Ellis and rushed toward her, insisting we leave immediately. She might have heard strange sounds but hadn't witnessed anything alarming. Seeing me suddenly sprint, knowing my physical limitations, while clearly terrified, shocked her into immediate action, and we escaped quickly together. We've never returned to that hiking path since. Now vegetation has completely reclaimed the trail, making it impossible to access even if curiosity struck. Still, I constantly wonder about that mysterious entity I encountered. Cryptid creature, supernatural being, whatever classification fits, I pray never to face such danger again. Apologies if this account seems brief or less spine-chilling than similar stories, but sharing this experience felt important, and hopefully you found it worthwhile reading. Greetings. Confession. Please call me Ninny. Before beginning, I wanted to express how meaningful your content has become, whether helping with sleep or maintaining focus during work hours. I genuinely love your video content and encourage you to continue creating. Even if this story doesn't appear in future videos, expressing these thoughts provides personal relief anyway. My residence sits directly in Manhattan's heart. That's right, New York's bustling metropolis. Countless unsettling incidents occur here due to massive population density and widespread substance abuse problems spanning recent decades. Certain experiences, however, leave lasting impressions that make you question what you actually witnessed. This particular incident occurred while traveling Manhattan's underground transit system. Midday sunshine filled the city above as I headed downtown for a romantic meeting. I planned to see someone I'd recently begun dating, feeling genuinely enthusiastic about our connection. Solo subway travel made me anxious since local crime rates had increased dramatically during that period. Therefore, I asked a friend to accompany me just for the journey portion. We caught the bus to reach the station, and everything proceeded normally for approximately 12 stops. Following our connection, we switched lines heading toward Manhattan. The instant we exited our car, everything around us transformed. It wasn't frightening exactly, but rather like reality had suddenly become muted and subdued. Picture stepping into a gothic film where colors drain away, leaving everything tinted in somber grays and blues while ordinary commuter noise vanished. The moment those train doors sealed shut behind us, all conversations around us simply stopped existing. When our next subway arrived, we dismissed whatever strange vibes we'd been sensing and chose to stand in the center of an empty car since no seats were available. Stop after stop, passengers departed until only 3 remained: myself, my companion, and one other individual. Though I tried avoiding direct eye contact, this person genuinely unsettled me. This individual was entirely hairless, dressed head to toe in black clothing including a long dark coat and carrying a business case. Standing probably 6'5", his towering frame felt intimidating despite his extremely thin build. His gaunt appearance was striking, sunken facial features, shadowed eyes, and unnaturally lengthy fingernails that looked almost claw-like. Despite my earlier promise not to stare, I found myself constantly watching him. Something compelled me to maintain visual contact, fearing what might happen if I looked away. I'm certain he noticed my persistent gaze through his peripheral vision, yet never once did he turn toward me or acknowledge my presence. Most subway riders understand the unspoken rule about avoiding eye contact, but here I was practically boring holes into this guy with zero response from him. After approximately 2 additional stations, the figure suddenly stirred. Having remained motionless throughout our entire journey, he slowly lowered his head and retrieved a copper coin from his clothing. His actions were so measured and intentional that my anxiety intensified as I wondered what would happen next. He studied the penny briefly before placing it with extreme precision on the adjacent seat, rotating and repositioning it until achieving perfect placement. Next, he extracted a small pouch from the identical pocket while grasping his briefcase handle. One final stop remained. As we approached our Manhattan destination, I swear this person lifted his head, locked eyes with me, and displayed the most unsettling smile imaginable, as though silently communicating, "I've known you were observing me this whole time." Terror consumed me completely, so I grabbed my companion and bolted from the train car, frantically searching for my friend. Breathless and perspiring, I demanded answers. "Hey, what was that situation about?" "What situation exactly?" she responded. My frustration was building rapidly. I stammered, "You know, that individual with the coin and the creepy expression. The enormous, intimidating bald person." My friend stared at me like I'd lost my mind and asked, "What are you talking about? When did this happen? Which person are you talking about?" There was nobody else with us during those last 5 train stops. My stomach dropped completely. Keep in mind, we'd been gripping the same metal rail, standing less than 4 feet away from this mysterious individual throughout the entire journey. I glanced back through our train car's glass, and that strange coin was still sitting there, confirming I wasn't experiencing some bizarre hallucination. I turned to my dating companion who had approached me with such enthusiasm for our evening plans, asking whether he'd noticed anyone else stepping off our subway car behind us. His response was clear: we were the sole passengers who had exited that particular car. "I'm telling you the absolute truth. This mysterious stranger departed right behind us immediately after strategically positioning that unusual coin, yet somehow only I could see him. That eerie sensation of being observed never completely left me following that supernatural encounter. Despite this strange incident, our romantic evening was successful, and we've now been in a committed relationship for nearly 6 months. My friend continues to insist adamantly that I must have imagined the entire bizarre experience that afternoon. However, I'm absolutely certain about what my eyes witnessed. I understand this paranormal story might not deliver the dramatic climax many viewers were anticipating, but I genuinely cannot provide any logical explanation for this mysterious subway encounter. Hello Midnight Confessions. If you or your audience members have any theories about what transpired that day, I'd really appreciate hearing your thoughts. And to that enigmatic stranger on the underground train who left mysterious payment at life's crossroads, let's never cross paths again. To be completely honest with you, I'm totally clueless about what happened. That experience sounds absolutely terrifying though. I definitely wasn't anticipating that twist. I was expecting this mysterious figure to stand up, communicate something directly to you, or take some kind of action toward you, but for this to be almost psychological in nature, like encountering a supernatural presence or paranormal spirit, that's incredibly bizarre and fascinating. I honestly have zero explanation for whatever paranormal experience you went through that particular day. That coin situation is really fascinating. I was right there when it happened. Honestly, I'm completely puzzled about it. To everyone watching this video, if you have any theories or explanations, please share them because I'm totally stumped. It's genuinely terrifying when you think about it. Fortunately though, you managed to escape without any harm and you're perfectly fine now. That's absolutely wonderful to hear. But man, what a spine-chilling experience that must have been. Thanks for sharing that story with us. Now, let's move on to our next incredible tale. Hey there, Midnight Confessions. I really appreciate you taking the time to submit this story. I absolutely love having your content as background while I'm gaming Minecraft or just cruising around. Please keep these amazing stories coming, and I genuinely hope everything's going great for you. Let's start the third story. This is a completely true account involving myself and my siblings during our childhood adventures when we used to venture into the wilderness during our younger years. This particular incident occurred when I was approximately 11 or 12 years of age. My younger brothers, F was 11 years old, and A was 10 years old, and myself, accompanied by our friend T, would regularly head up into the forest to explore and investigate whenever our parents were busy with work. Our living situation consisted of government housing units positioned between a busy interstate highway and a small mountainous ridge. The apartment where our family resided was quite cramped, particularly with my energetic brothers and myself constantly around, so our mother would insist we spend our time outdoors for most of each day. Otherwise, the entire house would turn into absolute chaos and destruction. Consequently, investigating and exploring the mountainous terrain behind our housing complex became our go-to activity. This was our standard routine during weekend days until the street lighting activated or until Mama would call us back inside. We frequented these woodland areas so regularly that Mama finally gave in and purchased us an excellent quality set of two-way radios for communication purposes, since we would frequently venture beyond normal shouting range during our expeditions. Over the course of several years, my brothers and I discovered various items throughout these forested areas. Everything from makeshift homeless shelters and concealed Japanese swords, to that one disturbing occasion when we stumbled upon a deceased canine with its head completely missing. Typically, we'd invest our day improving and building upon our makeshift fort structure. However, on this particular day, we deviated from our normal hiking routes and chose to investigate some unexplored territory. A and T would always lead our group whenever we went on these exploration missions, with N and myself following closely behind their pace. After hiking forward for approximately 20 to 30 minutes, we arrived at a location I had never encountered previously. It appeared to be some sort of natural clearing completely overrun with kudzu vines. Since this plant is extremely invasive throughout my geographical region, discovering a large concentrated area wasn't particularly surprising to us. The moment we stepped into this clearing, I felt the hair on the back of my neck stand straight up, and I began to realize that the forest seemed much more silent than usual. We proceeded to make our way across the clearing space. As we entered back into the tree-line boundary, the atmosphere shifted from quiet to almost complete and total silence. While pushing through the thick undergrowth vegetation, I caught sight of something in my peripheral vision, positioned just beyond the edge of a small rocky cliff face. There was a human head visible above a fallen tree trunk, looking down in our direction, observing our movements, and the others were completely oblivious to this presence. They hadn't spotted it because their attention was focused straight ahead on the path. They continued advancing toward the cliff edge when I suddenly froze completely in place. It felt as though my feet were cemented to the forest floor, and my eyes grew wide with terror as I watched this figure rise up from behind the log and make direct eye contact with me. Pure panic surged throughout my entire body as I shouted out, "There's someone up there watching us." The boys turned back toward me with confused expressions before directing their gaze upward toward the top of the cliff face. The person, or whatever the hell that thing actually was, had completely vanished without a trace. "Nobody's there," my friend announced confidently. But my heart was racing because I absolutely knew what I'd witnessed. Something was definitely observing us from above. Listen, I'm being completely honest here. There was definitely an entity up there, watching our every move. I yelled out my concerns. Seeing how genuinely frightened I was seemed to make him nervous too. Both T and N gave me those doubtful looks. I kept insisting that I'd seen something real. I can't recall my exact words, but eventually T proposed that I wait at the base while they investigated. I watched nervously as they climbed up the slope. They reached the fallen tree I'd seen the figure crouching behind. Every instinct screamed that we didn't belong in this place. We were clearly intruders here. I can't explain it, but I swear that right when they called down saying nothing was there, I heard this voice. The sound was soft but incredibly near. So close it felt like someone was breathing right into my ear. "Get out!" the voice hissed. I let out the loudest scream I could manage, yelling that we had to escape immediately, that I'd heard something terrifying. They came rushing down the hillside toward me, and the moment they were within range, I took off running. I sprinted as hard as possible with the guys chasing after me. They called out demanding answers, but I just kept fleeing. I didn't slow down until we were nearly back at our hangout spot, and Mom's voice crackled through the walkie-talkie. She was summoning us home for dinner. That evening, I attempted to convince them about my encounter, but they weren't believers in supernatural phenomena and remained certain I was just imagining things. I've returned to that forest clearing since, but never experienced that same overwhelming sense of dread I felt that day. Other strange incidents have occurred afterward, though I'm confident they're completely unconnected. I'm 24 now, and we've relocated from those apartment complexes to rural Tennessee. Thanks again for reading, and I'll share more frightening experiences that have happened to me.